Welcome to Module 4, MTSS, Essential Component, High Quality, Tier 1. Before we get started, have you printed your Module 4 Participant Workbook? These resources in your Participant Workbook will be referred to and used throughout today's module. Pause the recording and print if you have not yet done so. Today's module, MTSS Essential Component, High Quality Tier 1, is the fourth of 7 modules about multi-tiered systems of support in Wyoming. The content presented in this module should in no way be viewed as exhaustive or legally binding. You should continue to seek and participate in ongoing professional development related to topics presented today and in future sessions. By the end of this session, participants will be able to explain the critical features of a high-quality Tier 1 system, identify high-leverage practices essential for Tier 1, and understand the breeding of academic and behavior systems. As a review from Module 1, MTSS in Wyoming is a prevention framework for school improvement made up of 4 essential components. The 4 components are screening, multi-level prevention system, progress monitoring, and database decision-making. MTSS in Wyoming also encompasses features such as culturally responsive instruction, family engagement, and evidence-based instruction. As you'll notice in the graphic, each of the components and features contribute to improved student outcomes. Today we will focus on high-quality Tier 1 instruction within a multi-level prevention system. Please locate handout 4.1 in your participant workbook. With a partner or by yourself, list 3 to 5 of the most important teaching practices you believe teachers need to know in order to implement core instruction or interventions. As we move through the module, we'll revisit this handout. So fill in just the first column, and as we go through the module, you can fill in the second column. Pause the recording to complete the activity. In this section, we'll explain the critical features of a high-quality Tier 1 system. Refer to handout 4.2 in your participant workbook. The last column of the handout provides the critical features of Tier 1, including instruction, its materials, the use of differentiation, and how we work with students who are above or exceeding benchmark. There are several critical features outlined in the Tier 1 instruction on the final column. The first is that Tier 1 uses research-based curriculum materials. These are materials in which the actual program has not gone through rigorous review, but there's evidence that the features, instructional routines, or components of the program are evidence-based. The second feature of Tier 1 instruction is the articulation of teaching and learning both across grade levels and within a grade level. We often see this as evidenced through a curriculum map. We look for instruction that's aligned with state standards, as well as the consistent use of differentiated instruction. The inclusion of students with disabilities and those exceeding benchmarks are hallmarks of a high-quality Tier 1 instruction. Tier 1 requires research-based curricula across subjects and in the design of the school-wide behavior supports. Research-based curricula have been researched and found to be generally effective, although the curriculum materials have not been rigorously evaluated as a package. If you're wondering about resources available for determining the extent of the evidence base or research base for the curriculum materials available to your teachers, there are online resources available, or you can contact the vendor or publisher of the curricula available to you and your school. slide. There are 4 key ways in which teachers can differentiate instruction. First, teachers can differentiate their content. For example, a teacher may be teaching multiplication in a math class. Ultimately, all students need to be able to multiply 2 digits by another 2-digit number. If the teacher realizes that some students need the background skill of multiplying 2 digits by a 1-digit, he or she could provide instruction in that skill to those students. Other students in the class may get instruction on the goal skill, while still a third group may get instruction for multiplying 3-digit numbers by 3-digit numbers because they have already mastered the goal skill. Second, differentiated processes means altering the way in which students interact with the materials. For example, some students may read a book to gain information. Others may comprehend information better if it is read or spoken to them. Still, others may interact with the information through media, like video, interactive computer programs, or other similar programs. For each student, process can be differentiated to engage students based on their interest and learning preferences. Third, differentiation of product refers to how students show what he or she has learned. For example, when doing a book report, some students may write the report, while others may want to give an oral presentation, and others may need to design an interactive visual to show what they've learned. And finally, learning environment refers to differentiating the setting in which students learn. For example, some students may need a quiet place to master material, while others learn better when discussing concepts in a small group. Learning environment may also include where a student sits in the classroom or what kinds of tactile learning supports are present. Differentiation of instruction is more than just grouping students by interest or ability. There are other features of differentiation of instruction. These include using teacher modeling, scaffolding student responses, offering choices, presenting information in multiple formats, providing multiple response opportunities that incorporate immediate and corrective feedback, and providing opportunities for students to direct their own learning to areas, processes, and products that fit their interests and learning styles. When teachers use learning menus or choice boards like the one presented here, they offer students options for producing a final product. If you recall from the previous slide, providing choice is a feature of differentiated instruction. Each choice should be challenging and should require approximately the same amount of time to complete. Although there are a number of ways to offer these choices, some teachers present them in a menu. Here's an example of a diner menu. Another method of giving student choice, not pictured on this slide, is to structure activity choices in a tic-tac-toe board format. There is another method of offering student choices in the type of products they complete to demonstrate their knowledge. As in a traditional tic-tac-toe game, students are presented with a 9-cell table of options. The teacher should make sure all the options address the key concepts or skills being learned. There are several variations on this method. Students could choose 3 products from a horizontal, vertical, or diagonal line. They could choose 1 product from each row, or teachers can create 2 or more versions to address the different readiness levels. In the last column of handout 4.2 for aligning with state standards, you'll see that the core curriculum should be aligned with Common Core or other state standards. In June of 2012, Wyoming adopted the Common Core state standards as its standards for English language arts and math. No amendments were made to the original Common Core standards. Finally, the last criteria has to do with the inclusions of students exceeding benchmark. Usually people associate MTSS with students who are struggling, but in reality, MTSS is meant to meet the needs of all learners, from those who are gifted and talented to those with the most significant learning disabilities. Inclusion of students exceeding benchmark requires schools to provide enrichment opportunities for those students. Educators need to implement those opportunities consistently across classes and grade levels. In some cases, students may consistently exceed benchmark, as you can see in this sample data set. Consistent with the Wyoming MTSS Fidelity Implementation Rubric, schools should provide opportunities for students who are exceeding benchmark, not just those performing below. As you learned in Module 1, students with disabilities and struggling students are also included in the entire framework for MTSS. Struggling students, including students with disabilities, must be provided appropriate supports to ensure that they have access to the Tier 1 content and instruction. Screening data may indicate that some students are performing well below grade level expectations. Educators must ensure that regardless of ability level, all students can access core instruction. Screening data assists educators in determining the effect of Tier 1 instruction for those individuals. Throughout this section, we have reviewed the criteria outlined in Handout 4.2, an excerpt from the Fidelity of Implementation rubric for MTSS. Take a moment to reflect on where you are in your implementation of these 5 components or 5 criteria. Pause the recording and begin when you're ready to go. The Wyoming Department of Education supports an integrated academic and behavior model at all tiers of instruction. There are several reasons why integrating academic and behavior supports, particularly in the area of reading, could lead to improved student outcomes. The connection between low academic skills and problem behavior, which may be evident as early as kindergarten, grows over time as students move from elementary to secondary. Problems in one area, either reading or behavior, can also predict future problems in the other area. Poor academic skills early in school predict a wide range of behavior problems. Because students who have difficulty reading may find problem behavior as an effective means of escaping or avoiding reading activities. Reducing the number of incidents of problem behavior allows educators to provide quality instruction to occur more often and with fewer distractions. When evaluating the Tier 1 system, teams must consider the impact of academic performance on problem behavior and problem behavior on academic performance. Are there patterns for when the problem behavior is occurring, both at the individual, class, or grade level? And could there be a behavioral root cause to an academic difficulty or vice versa? Take a moment to reflect and consider, to what extent are you aligning behavior and academic core instructional practices? To what extent are you aligning your behavior and academic Tier 1 assessments and evaluation? In this next section, we'll talk about high leverage practices, which are essential for delivering effective Tier 1 instruction. High leverage practices, or HLPs, are how teachers deliver instruction. All teachers should have deep knowledge and a core set of effective instructional practices. A high leverage practice is an action or a task central to teaching. Carried out skillfully, these practices increase the likelihood that teaching will be effective for students' learning. They are useful across a broad range of subjects, grade levels, and teaching contexts, and are helpful in using and managing differences among students. The set of high-leverage practices is intended as a common framework for teaching that will provide a core curriculum for educator preparation and in-service. HLPs are not constrained by content or grade level, such as similar to evidence-based practices. High-leverage practices are cross-cutting practices that are used by all teachers in delivering evidence-based practices. HLPs is about how teachers deliver their content, including the use of evidence-based practices in all content areas. No. Take a moment to revisit your responses in our first activity. Review the list you created in the first column of the handout. How does your list compare to the high leverage practice list that's available in handout 4.3? How are the lists similar or different? Take a moment and compare your list and take notes about what you believe are about the high leverage practices. In this module, you learned about the key criteria for an effective Tier 1 system. You were introduced to the high leverage practices. For more information about the high leverage practices or the critical criteria for Tier 1, consider taking a look at your participant workbook. There are some extension activities to consider to help build your knowledge of high leverage practices. Handout 4.5 in your book allows you to identify 3 to 5 high leverage practices that you or your school would like to ensure that all teachers are using. There's a plan that allows you to develop an action plan for dissemination and implementation. Now that you've completed Module 4, consider taking the Module 4 quiz. To get the answers, contact the State MTSS coach, Bart Lyman. After you've completed the Module 4 quiz, consider completing Module 5, Progress Monitoring. To extend your learning, complete the extension activity on how to prioritize high leverage practices and look at how to integrate academic and behavior root cause consideration during your Wyoming problem-solving process with your current teams and leadership. If you're looking for additional resources, consider checking out the IRIS modules on differentiated instruction. These useful modules will help in-service teachers learn more about how to differentiate in their classrooms. If you'd like to learn more about integrating academic and behavioral support, consider accessing the National Center on Intensive Intervention or other resources available on the IRIS website. As always, use your Project Win MTSS website. You can access the website by typing in wyominginstructionalnetwork.com and searching MTSS. If you need additional information or have questions, contact your Wyoming State MTSS coach, Bart Lyman, or Jennifer Heiler, the Wyoming SPDIG Program Manager.